Everything is in motion. This is one day at a time. Everyone has cancer, and this is where I battle mine. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. It is 2018, and this is episode 8. Wow, that's really fitting. I did not plan for that. I was just really trying to take the holidays off because we haven't really reached a point where, I want to live my life behind a microphone. I've said that a lot this last little bit of my life because I finally found that resolve that's what I want to do with myself. But we're not really, fixing to be 34 years old, but, still not at the point where this can be fruitful and it can multiply into like a big, awesome production where it can actually start making money. But that's not what this show is about. That's what Quarter Cows is about. We're not about making money, but hey, if Batman didn't have any money, then he wouldn't be Batman, right? So, but welcome back. Welcome to 2018. These are the times that we're gonna get ourselves all figured out. And maybe not even get ourselves all figured out in the head because we're always changing, because we're always learning, and because we always are going to have our problems. We're always going to be able to find a better person of us, always strive for perfection, but never expect to reach it. Because if you reach perfection, you're not going to learn. And if you're able to define yourself, that means you've come to a close. I never want any of you to come to a close. I don't want to come to a close. I got some scars, but my scars need company. So I am ready for 2018. I'm ready for new adventures, and I'm ready for new adversity. Adversity, like the word adversity. I've taken on the lion. I've taken on the bear. So I'm ready to take on 2018. And once you've battled your cancer, kind of everything else is a little bit easier to do. Once you face your mortality, you don't really. Like I've said before on the shows, you kind of realize what's important and what's worth fighting for. And it's not always a quick buck. So let me tell you a little bit more. I say this on every show, but, for those people who haven't heard it before, in 2001, I was diagnosed with leukemia, ALL. I was 16, so they didn't know whether to... I say try me, but they didn't know whether to put me in pediatric or put me in adult. And they didn't, it was like a good year before we got the results back. There was like, without a shadow of a doubt, it is ALL. I don't want to butcher that name. If you want to know more about it, it's an easy search. Accumulative lymphoblastic leukemia. Which, I believe there's 4 different versions of leukemia, and I had the weakest version of it, which is like saying, of the guns that were pointed at my head and shot, the pistol is the one that did the least amount of damage. Like, no matter what, you're going to die, or are you? Because I made it, obviously. I'm here. This isn't a show from beyond the grave, which would be an amazing show. I think a lot of people would like to hear that show and figure out what's on the other side, even though a lot of us like to think we know, myself included. But here's the thing is I made it, and a few years later, spoiler alert, I got it again. In 2005, I was re-diagnosed. I relapsed. So with that, obviously, my immune system wasn't strong enough to fight off leukemia, so they had to give me a new one. So I had to get a bone marrow transplant. And then my immune system was pretty much at an infancy level. That's right. When you get a bone marrow transplant, you got to get your shots again. You may get chickenpox again. You have to get revaccinated with all your 1-year-old shots. So I'm 34 years old. I think my immune system is 12 or 13. Oh, wait, I think it's 14 now. So, yay. Good news there. See, I just start talking and learn stuff about myself. And sometimes that's what the show is all about. Like, sometimes you just need to, like, talk about what you got, the problems you've had to face, and you end up kind of realizing something about yourself. It's not until you actually talk that you really hear your resolve, because your inner monologue, I don't care who you are, if you are hearing my voice right now, then I want you to hear this, is that every single person on the planet, as you know, has an inner monologue. What people need to understand is that inner monologue is not you. You, the real you, is the person when they speak. We may, and it's easy to lie, but some people get good at lying, but it doesn't matter. It's not based on what someone else hears you say. It's what you hear yourself say. Because you know when you lied. So you have to face the fact that you just lied. When you do something, even if you never get caught for it, that you do something shady, you do something bad, no one could ever find out about it. There could be things that happen in your life that are rolling around up there. You got the experience of it, be it like a horrible thing that happened to you or a horrible thing you did that you will never outwardly speak, but you learn a lot about yourself when you talk to someone. And so I'm not telling you to, this show isn't about telling anyone and helping anyone find the answers. It's about just speaking so you can hear yourself and know yourself more. So find someone that's willing to listen, because that's the greatest therapy in the world, to me, is someone that'll listen. Not someone that'll answer you, just someone that will listen. Just an actual ear. And sometimes we just got to go out and hear ourselves say it, because, we just kind of have to, bounce those words off a wall, and have some, for some reason, saying it out loud is one thing, but saying it in a way that someone can hear you, that's the scary bit. How many things can you think of right now that you would be terrified to actually tell someone about yourself? I just thought of a few myself that just outwardly saying it, the idea of it makes you nervous. But that's just how we are. And one thing that I always got faced with, though, is me with the hospital stuff. I'll tell you, man, I laid there. I did a lot of crying. I did a lot of soul searching. I wished, I tried to bargain with this disease and tried to make it okay for me to have it. I argued with some doctors saying, like, no, can you diagnose me with something else? Tell me what's behind door number 3, and even though it wasn't that, they weren't giving it to me. It wasn't a gift. Like, the doctors weren't like, hey, I got something for you. Look under your seats. It's cancer. Sorry. People that have had cancer tend to have a dark sense of humor about it. But one thing that I always did was I laid there and cried, and I threw up a lot. That's what it was to me. It's like that's what I did. But really, I've had so many people throughout my life come and tell me how strong and courageous and brave I am, and I'm just thinking, like, that's not bravery. To me, it's not my definition. I laid in a bed and sat there and wished and prayed and told God, just like Jesus did, like, if this cup can pass me, please let it pass. I don't want to deal with this. I didn't have anything better to do, but I didn't want to do this. And, I just wanted to be happy for the rest of my life. I didn't want to try and, save my own life. I didn't want my life to, no one just is like, what? I think I'm going to question my own mortality today. Thrill seekers do, but I am far from a thrill seeker. I'm ticklish and scared of heights. So, but yeah, so I really, I didn't see the courage and the bravery, but they did, other people did. And but one bad part about that is throughout my life, I've had conversations with people that would start with friends, family, whoever, that would start telling me, what they have been through. Like, not really just like, Cody, here it is, because I want to be a motivational speaker. That's what this show's all about. But you'll just end up standing there with someone, and then one day they just, you're just in a conversation and it just comes up because that's what's going on in their life. Have you ever done that? Like, just been sitting there talking to someone and they just end up telling you something that you didn't know about them. Like, well, I'm going through a really bad divorce, and you thought that they were perfectly happy. Or you find out, this awesome person and, like, has a really bad addiction problem, or, man, I remember one time when I was at work, at the beginning of 2016. I was at work on January 1st in the morning. Yeah, it was that whole rigmarole. Had a guy just standing in the store waiting his turn in line, and we had this one guy come in, and that was like kind of our friends. If you know Chris, you know from the Court of Cows, me and him used to work together, and this guy comes in. This dude's name is Malik. And a big old black dude, like strongest personality in the world. I'll have to tell you his story another time, but this is just the kind of the big closure of his whole thing was that he's in there, really big personality. Like he's the kind of guy that just takes over a room, just comes in. He's friends with everyone. He knows everyone. Everyone's happy to see him. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he's the type of guy that will just turn, and the first person that meets eyes with him is his best friend. And like he just started talking to this dude that was in line, who was just standing there very stoic and very had kind of like this look on his, like didn't look like he wanted to talk to anybody, let alone Malik. And Malik is like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And I'm just witnessing all this, but he's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll make it." And they just start talking, and just kind of out of nowhere, he's like, "Are you ready for the new year?" And this guy's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Oh, dude, it's a new year. It's a time for change. It's a time to, get right in your life, and it's a chance to, the end of the year is the results of, is kind of like you get to see the big fallout and the consequences of everything you've kind of led up to. Like these are the results of everything you've worked for the entire year is the holidays, so that's the way I see it anyway." And this guy's like, just starts singing a cowboy song. He's just like, "No, I'm not ready. My wife just left me. She took the house, took the kids, took the dog. I have nothing, and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And now I got a new year in front of me, and I'm back at square one. I'm a single bachelor, and I got to figure out where I'm going to live. I got to figure out this job I got." And like I said, just kind of, Malik was just asking him how his day was, and this dude just started telling him all this. And then he just ends up apologizing to Malik, because it's really, Malik was the very, very first person that asked him how he was doing. It wasn't, "How you doing?" like, "Hey, we just met eyes, so one of us has to say something, otherwise it's weird." Malik genuinely asked him how he was doing, and it just word vomit, like it just came out. And Malik didn't like awkward. He didn't look at me like, "Oh, get this guy a free game," or get this guy a discount, nothing like that. Malik didn't back away at all. He just was like, "Oh yeah, I've gone through a couple divorces," and the guy's like, "Well, this is my first, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself." And then they just start talking, and I'll tell you this story. You know what? I'll tell you this story at the end of the show. But some food for thought, as Malik looked over at me and he was like, "Well, Cody and Chris, they saw me at my worst. They saw the worst day of my life, and it was right here in this store." And me and Chris agreed with him. We were like, "Yeah, that was a rough day." And that was the very first day we had met Malik, and, so, he goes from having this horrible, horrible thing happen, Malik did, where, we had to call. I'll tell you the whole story later, but just to kind of like give you a teaser, is we ended up having to call 911 for Malik in the store, and this dude's carried out on a stretcher. At the January 1st of the next year, this guy is in there saying, "Hey, you're the first guy to offer it. Dude, I need help. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself." And you could see it in his eyes. It was the first time he said it out loud, that he was like, I'm really not okay. Like, holy crap, there's something wrong. And Malik ends up talking to him and talking to him and talking to him. They end up stepping outside into the parking lot. The dude's parked right up against the store, so I can see him through the window. And they talk and talk. 3 hours they are outside just talking. To this day, that was 2016, January 1st, 2016. I've talked to Malik since then. I have no idea what they talked about. And Malik said he just let this guy go. Just let him just run his mouth. Just let him talk and express all of his problems. And that being that the, first time I ever met Malik is, he's being carried on a stretcher and then on like a horrible day of his life. And then that leads into him like outside helping this guy, like not giving him the answers, but I mean, telling him, hey, like there's a way to find the answers. That's kind of where I ended up going. And I have had several people in my life, something like that would happen, just kind of word vomit out. But they would always look at me, and if they knew what I had been through, they would look at me and say, well, it's nothing compared to cancer, or it's nothing compared to what you went through, and just completely like downplay and degrade whatever they're going through in comparison to mine, and really like sell themselves short. And that always bugged me because it felt like a little kid was telling me he was going to be a big boxer, and then looked over and then got nervous because they looked over and saw Mike Tyson, and they were like, well, we'll never be as good as you, and I'd be like, oh, no, that is awesome. Like what you're going through, you're going to get through it, and don't compare it to me. Don't compare it to anything. What you're going through is what you are going through. You're going through a detrimental point in your life, be it, if you're going through it, went through it, or will go through it. Everyone has that thing in their life, be it, some kind of addiction or some kind of vice, a divorce, maybe dealing with their own sexuality, haven't come out of the closet, or, they did come out of the closet and it wasn't as well received as they wanted it to by family members. Maybe it was domestic abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. Maybe it was an illness. Maybe it was mortality. Maybe someone in their life decided to end it short. Or maybe they're just dealing with depression or some kind of mental abuse they're doing to themselves. Or like me, they have like a survivor's complex, and or like survivor's guilt, because that's something I've struggled with for years. Like, you can't go through pediatric oncology and see all these kids, and some of them not make it, and then think, what made me important? Why did I live? And this 3-year-old to 6-year-old that was so bright-eyed and beautiful and innocent and never done anything in their life. Me, I told you, goth kid. There's nothing wrong with being a goth kid, but I was a bad kid. I was a punk, man. Like I would go to stores and steal crap. I was drinking with my friends. I was sneaking out at night. I just doing everything that, like, just think of a punk rock lifestyle. I was living it, but I got to live, and this, kid didn't. Like that. That's something I still struggle with, and, and that's a whole other lesson. You don't get these things because you deserve it. You don't live through it because you deserve to live. Some storms just happen, and they're not karmatic. Like, there's no reason for it. They just happen. And they're all we're all individuals, and they're all unique to us, so that's where the idea of this show came from, is that to me, everyone has their cancer. Where I battled cancer, like I said, you might have had like a horrible fist fight with, a loved one that, you never thought would hurt you. Man, I got some good shows down the way. We'll talk more about that later. But I've had people come to me that are friends of mine, that, like, one of which has like this health issue that cannot be diagnosed. Her body's just eating her, like, literally. And I got another friend that has suicidal thoughts, has a beautiful family, has beautiful kids, was very successful in life, but has these nights where all they want to do is write a suicide letter and just end it all because it's an illness. And, I got a family member right now that, who just lost a relationship because, they had an addiction to something, when all my family member was wanting to do was be there for him and help him. But the addiction took hold. And, that's a whole other thing because, when you have cancer, you don't have cancer by yourself. You're the hub of the wheel. And, everyone around you suffers from the same illness in a different way. And, like I found out a long time ago that when I got cancer, it started a war. And in every war, there's so many little individual battles that some of them you'll never even find out all of it. So yeah, I might have been like fighting the main war. I might have been the main story arc, but there were so many individuals that had their own story. But it all kind of culminated with me having cancer. My brother had his own thing. My mom had her own thing. My dad had his own thing. Like my friends at school, took the donations and all that stuff. But what it really comes down to is that it's meaningless. There's what I mean by that is pointless and meaningless, two completely different things. When I say meaningless, I mean, like I said, there's no karmatic justice behind it. There's no reason you've had to face what you went through. And that is one of the hardest things because I sat there and wondered, man, like I wondered for so long what I did to deserve this. And really reflected on the fact that I was a bad kid. And I think I've mentioned it here and there, but like at one point I just thought I wasn't a good enough Christian. Like I got sick because I wasn't a good Christian. That God was punishing me. When, no, no, he wasn't. A storm just happened, and cancer is a time bomb. And I think we all have this time bomb. Like some of us, that's the cancer we're trying to get over. There's this time bomb inside of us that once it goes off, we're going to face it for the rest of our lives. It may not kill us, but it's always going to try. It's like Batman meeting Joker for the first time. He didn't just meet him, beat him, and that was it. He met Joker, and it became Batman versus the Joker. And you know what it did for Batman? It created some of the best stories of his life, and defining moments of Batman is just because he was taking on the Joker. We all have our Joker. We all have that thing in our lives that we're trying to overcome and we're trying to give meaning to. And when I say give meaning to is we look for answers, but we don't get, if we were given the right answer, it doesn't give comfort, so it wouldn't be the right answer. If when I finally do go to heaven, if I look at God and say, hey, why did I get cancer? If God himself, the creators of the heaven and earth, said, I wish you didn't have to, but it's just in the earth. Like some people just get it. Just like some people get dirt roads in their neighborhood, or just like some people get paid less than others, or, whatever. It's because it's part of the earth and it affects some people. That would make me so angry, but not so much anymore, because this is how I'm giving meaning to it, is I'm taking it and I'm using all I've been through to reach out to you guys. And I hope to reach new people every single time I do this show. And I have. I've at least one person has heard it and hit me back. That's all I need. That's all I want in the world, is just one person to say, hey, that spoke to me. And that's enough for me. That is completely enough. That's why I say, I'm not trying to turn a profit with this. I just want to reach enough people as possible. And if I had, people hit me up all the time and just saying, because I'm no doctor, I'm no expert, I'm not going to say, well, here's how you get through that, here's how you get through that. But, when people hit me up and say, hey, here's what I've been through, can I be part of the show? Be like, dude, you are part of the show. Get out there, tell people, do what I'm doing. Look at my views. I got 15 views on some of the videos. 7, haven't even gotten up into the double digits. Just get out there, and you don't need a podcast, or you don't even need a microphone. You just go out there and, because whatever you're going through, you've been going through it for a while. There's someone that's going into it right now that has no idea what they're doing. I've said this before. I had a friend that, like I said, the friend of mine that I'm going to have her on the show at some point. I say that every time, but has these suicidal thoughts, and has these really, really, really hard times with suicidal thoughts. But she knows, she looks over at her husband and says, hey, we need to lock some stuff up. And they got a safe, and they lock up all the pointy objects, all the long strings, and, I'm sure all the pens and paper so she can't, write a note, But yeah, they button down the hatches and get ready for a storm because it's coming. And, she has the skills, she has the tools, she knows with the onset of these things, she's done it enough to where she'll never be without it, but she knows how to fight it. And there are some people out there that might be in that first few moments of that, like never had to struggle with these thoughts in their life, never had any kind of these issues, but if she could just go there and say, yeah, hey, I have those thoughts too. And that could be all she says to them. Hey, yeah, that's rough. You should get a safe because I got a safe and it helped me. It made me feel safe. Ha. But yeah, she could easily do that. And just with that, like one thing I always wanted the first time around was just someone, oh, excuse me, weather's changing. But yeah, something I always wanted was someone my age or a little bit older that could say, yeah, I went through it, it's rough. I don't want them to tell me how to do it or how to beat it. I just wanted them to say, hey, yeah, this crap sucks. Are they giving you methotrexate? They gave that to me too. Are they making you take steroids? God, I hate steroids. What doctor are you seeing? Oh, yeah, he's a nice guy. Just someone to relate to. And just say, hey, there is life on the other side of this. And I think we have that in droves, like just all around the world. There's just a cornucopia, just so many people out there that have been through this that all they got to do is say, hey, just say no. When your mortality is questioned, and you have everything kind of saying on paper that you should be dead, just say no. And when they say, okay, well, we have all this, we have all these reasons, why do you not want to die? Give us all the reasons. And just no. That's the only reason you're getting. No. Just live in spite of death, Live a healthy life because you're supposed to die from this. And that's how I gave meaning to it, as I just started saying, you know what, like, if this is predestined that I was supposed to die from this, and I dealt with those thoughts for a long time that, like, maybe I am alive and, the world just kind of forgot about me because I was supposed to die. No, that's, no one has a predestined, everyone kind of has hopes and dreams, and it's what they feel they're destined to do, but, dude, fixing to be 34. I still don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with my life, but I know what I want to do and I know what I'm passionate about. And it's not, I didn't wake up one day saying, you know what, I should get cancer and die, and because of my kind of spitefulness towards the idea that I was supposed to die, it has made me into a better version of myself. And that's what I can guarantee you. It's not going to make you into this just strong person that can take everything and never cries and never hurts and is made of steel and can leap tall buildings in a single bound. And ever since that night, I became the creature I am today. I am a superhero and I can dodge bullets. No, what it's going to do is, I guarantee you 100%, bet money on it, it will make you into the better, best version of you, because you will know how to beat this horrible thing in your life. Once you face your mortality, things get a little bit easier to deal with. I don't want to say they get easier, because they don't. I still have had problems throughout my life that are extremely, extremely hard struggles. But like I said at the beginning of this, once you take on the bear, once you take on the lion, everything else is you're not too scared of it. And I used to be terrified of the hospital, but now I kind of not really scared of it. And dude, if I feel like I'm going to throw up now, or like have to get a needle poked in my arm, because I got to take a shot or something, it is no big deal, And I don't get scared of stuff like that anymore. And like I said, like once you kind of figured out mortality, it's the day-to-day life that is kind of a struggle. And that's the stuff that scares me, is like living and being normal. But Oh, delicious drink. But that's what the show's all about. The show's about me telling my story and, catching you up through all of it. Just saying that, everyone has their cancer. Everyone has that one horrible thing they're going through. And, the way you give meaning to it is you tell your story so you can hear it. Not so someone else can hear it. The cool byproduct of it is that someone who needs to hear it will probably hear it. You may not never, yeah, show them where I'm from. But you may not ever meet that person, but what you are going to do is you may have someone just do a little nod and rethink the way they think about themselves and think about their whole situation. And that's what it's all about. You're an inspiration by going through something and being flawed. Not being flawless and not being a superhero, by being flawed and keep going forward, even though everything around you is saying to stop. You just keep going forward because that's how strong you are. That's how you show strength. Where I thought I was just laying in bed, throwing up and crying. That's how you beat cancer. That's what I did. Apparently that is the definition of bravery to some people, because I've had people come up because their inspiration is not my inspiration. They look at me and what I've been through, and they think they're going to be all right. If someone can look at me and say, well, it could be worse, I could have had cancer, then I hope they never have to go through it, and I hope that, I hope they can make it, But anyways, I digest. I want to think, I ramble, if you may not have noticed. But I want to thank the Quarter Cows for giving me this soapbox to stand on and to tell you guys the exact same thing over and over again. And I want to say that, go to facebook.com/quartercows and check out our videos. It's all about comic books, video games. We're going to start getting into music. It's movies. We got podcasts. We got openings. We have a huge box. We got so many Pokemon things. We're going to have to open up a little Pokemon section because we do all these openings of toys and figures and stuff. But there's so much Pokemon stuff that is kind of gathered up because we haven't had time to do videos. And, so we're doing all these opening of Pokemon cards and, other stuff on the way. I plan on playing some Mega Man games on Twitch, and, August is going to be doing some video game stuff on Twitch. We're going to be doing all sorts of reviews. We have quite a few videos, so go over there, subscribe. Our YouTube name is youtube.com/ blah, 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 blah. It's this big, long thing, but if we hit 100 subscribers, we get our own custom URL. So help us get the right to say at the end or beginning or right here when we're plugging stuff to say, hey, check us out at youtube.com/quartercows, because that would mean the world to us. That's what we're trying to get to right now. Right now, I think we have 7 subscribers. So we are on our way. We just need 93 more, and we'll be there. And you just witnessed a Christmas miracle, because I think I did the math right in my head very, very quickly. So and I suck at math. So we're going to go ahead. Oh, I already talked for 33 minutes. Awesome. But yeah, so now we're to the story portion of our show. So I am going to throw 30 minutes on the clock, and we are going to jump back into it. So, and start. All right. So, the last time we were on here, we were talking about the BA house days. Man, those were really fun times. The living room. We had beds in the bedroom. We had a den, and that's where the TV and the couch was. But the big old huge living room, that place is where all the equipment was. That was our stage. We had a big sound recording booth. Well, not a booth, but a big mixer on the side to where we could record music, which we never did. And, we did it a couple times and it came out crap. But we had that, and then we had amps just lining the place. And, and we would practice, and Separation from All would practice. If you want to know more about those guys, I talked about them last time. But most of the time, that was just a punk rock house. That never hardcore drugs, but it was usually drinking. There was it was a metal lifestyle, so there was a lot of beer, coming through that place. A lot of beer and cigarettes, and we figured out how to get all of those. And, had cancer before, so I've had people throughout my life be like, how could you have cancer and still smoke? Oh, it was my body, and I make dumb choices. So yeah, we partied a lot, we hung out a lot, and I had my own car, so most of my time, again, living a punk rock lifestyle was sitting there wondering how I'm going to get gas while I'm buying $5 to $10 worth of cigarettes, so, and, I don't have any money for gas and food. So there was a gas station that was within walking distance of the neighborhood we lived in. So a few of us would just go in shifts. So 3 of us would go up there, and then once they came back, another 3 would go up there, and we would just steal a bunch of food. And we lived on hot dogs, warm up burritos and microwave burgers and toilet sandwiches, as I like to call them. Any sandwich that you buy at a gas station is a toilet sandwich, because more than likely you are going to end up in the bathroom, and that sandwich is probably going to come out the same way it went in, and the other direction too. So, but yeah, and we had Super Nintendo and a regular Nintendo, and because I've always been a video game collector and love me some retro games, so we'd go up to our local game store that sold these games and steal a bunch of them. We would the video stores around the neighborhood, Broken Arrow, where I live, it didn't really become a big busy town for a while. When I was growing up, it definitely wasn't. I don't want to be this was all farmlands or anything like that, because it wasn't. But we did still have some video stores that rented games out and stuff. And, so we would just, and those were starting to close down, because retro gaming, it wasn't called retro gaming yet, but these games weren't selling the way they used to. So, yeah, we would go to these video stores that had buy these, it'll be 10% or 50% off the whole store. And, we would go to these stores knowing they were going to be shut down in 10 months and rent these games and, and then, fill out the application to, for a renting permit and stuff like that, and, change some of the numbers on there so they couldn't find us. And, yeah, just rent a bunch of games, knowing we're never going to bring them back. And, yeah, we just kind of, lived the life of heathens, And honestly, it was a blast, but it was no way to live. And it was just all about fun. It was playtime, and it was a bunch of kids being stupid. It was a bunch of kids without adults, that actually had cars and stuff now, and no responsibilities. So Chris's parents owned this restaurant, this buffet restaurant, and I was a dishwasher there. Never got a paycheck, but that was because I would just give my paycheck directly to Chris's parents, and just be hey, just don't give me a paycheck, just give me, just use that as rent, and that's kind of how I lived for the longest time. I kind of worked there for free, found out later that that's highly illegal, but yeah, never collected a paycheck. She kept all my paychecks, and that was our agreement. And, and usually if anything, and Chris could kind of do no wrong. So, because it was his parents that owned our house and owned the place we worked at. So, anything that went wrong at work or anything that went wrong at the house, it would completely bypass Chris and usually got thrown on me. That's how it felt anyways. And, they would come at me and they would confront me about making the house a pit and not taking care of things and allowing drinking parties and stuff like that. And it would usually be me and Chris. So having your landlords tell you that you're ruining things for everyone else when you weren't. That it was kind of a package deal, and their beloved son was unfortunately part of it. But yeah, that's all hearsay. But that's all kind of that's as far as I'll go into it. But the days were numbered at the BA house. There was no way that you can party at a house for 9 months that has to be paid for, and keep going to the same places and with like all the same people and just keep stealing from the same places, and it lasts a very long time. Like we got off with 9 months of just fun, and it shouldn't have lasted that long. At the end, that the business venture for them, like the restaurant, was just in a bad place, not in a bad place of town, but like, location. So it just wasn't in a very lucrative, it wasn't a very lucrative and fiscal opportunity for them. And it ended up closing down. And so our rent got raised, and Chris, he found a job right away, and I had trouble finding a job. And it was my own fault, it was just because I had never really had to work for anything. And I was kind of privileged. I was kind of a sheltered kid, and, even though, like, I say sheltered, like you've heard all the bad stuff I did as a kid, but I mean sheltered in the way that I never really had to try up until that point to do anything, which is bad, because this is around the time I'm fixing to graduate high school, and and just be done with school, period, and I had no experience. I had no sense of responsibility. I had no sense of like having to try for anything, because this is also having cancer the first time, like that kind of gave me a little bit of a weird complex where like you just don't get mad at me. You don't expect me to do anything. You just wait for me to recover, and you tell me how great I am and how wonderful I am. And I think I said this before, is like it was kind of a double-edged sword of a complex, because I hated being looked at as the newborn in the room, but I got so used to being the newborn in the room that like you treated me like a child. You're supposed to treat me like a child. You're supposed to take care of everything and then just tell me how great I am, That's how I was, and I can admit that now. That's the kind of mindset I was in when I was 18, that like everything's going to work out because everyone else is going to take care of it, and I don't have to try. I don't have to do anything. I just kind of have to wait for everything to sort itself out. And, that obviously got me into some trouble. Like I couldn't find a job because I didn't know how to, present myself. I didn't know how to get acclimated. I didn't know how to, I wasn't a go-getter. Like I just kind of said, hey, can I have a job? Like I just kind of walked in with my hand like kind of half raised, because I would say I wanted the job, but I don't really want the job because I don't want to have to work, But yeah, like I'm not ashamed to admit it, that like that set myself up for failure there for a while, and and before long they just couldn't. They needed to actually rent out the BA house to someone that would actually pay for it. They got a couple families lined up that were willing to pay like good money for it. So they just kicked us all out, and Chris was going to go live with them in Muskogee. At this point, me and Chris, like I mentioned before, like and not including all this stuff, but me and Chris ended up getting into like some pretty bad arguments and kind of started butting heads. You can't spend all your time with one person and not expect to eventually butt heads. Me and him shared a bedroom. We talked about everything. We were kind of, we were Jay and Silent Bob, even though we were both Jay. And, we were just a package deal. Again, no matter what we did together. And he was kind of always the one that, like, I just kind of went with whatever he wanted to do, because eventually I'd end up getting to hang out with my friends, But yeah, like some stuff started going down with the band. Me and him started colliding in a big way. And eventually me and him just ended up going our separate ways. And, so I moved back into my parents' house, which I really didn't want to do, because at this point, like my parents live right down the road, and that's where I would go to like do laundry and stuff like that. But I think my sister was the only one that still lived there, kind of left my mom and dad in the same house together. And now all two of the kids are moved out. One of them's still there, but she had was starting to try and move out herself, and which really just left my mom and dad to each other, which not a good thing. My father was always like very conservative and very like, the woman obeys, the woman submits. My mom was an old hippie, very, very Christian lady. I think I've said this before on the show, but this lady, you could fire off any kind of scripture from the Bible and just look over and say, "Hey, Mom, what profit is it to a man if he gains the world and loses his own soul?" And she'd go, "Matthew 16:26. Why?" Like she can just do that. And like that girl, she knows the Bible front and back. She could tell you all about it. She knows that, like, I know Batman and I know Berserk and stuff like that. Like her Bible was the actual Bible. So, and it's mine too, but very hippie. I'm not going to submit. She was the type that, if someone said, well, the Bible says the woman is supposed to submit, and she's like, yeah, it does. It also says that women should submit to men worth submitting to. So, yeah, submit in the current definition does not mean the same thing that it means in the Bible. And she would get in, like, these big debates. And, yeah, and my mom was a firecracker, so was my grandmother. She ain't backing down from nothing. And especially not my dad, a guy that, like how many married men do we have out there that, like, yeah, their wife hasn't figured out and they can talk a big game and blow smoke and get all full of hot air, but yeah, that's not going to work. So yeah, it was a very hard place to go back to, just because of like kind of all the I guess strife, like all the kind of arguing that was kind of going on. So I felt like I was leaving, what's the word? Leaving a very content nest, going to the chaos and the fun that was the BA house, and then kind of coming back to the content nest, but it ain't content anymore. Now it's kind of chaos in and of itself. And then, like, there for a little bit, things don't, because, they say that, when you first move out, you always end up moving back the first time. My brother ended up, he had an apartment with a dude, and that dude ended up, like, kind of having his own issues, I think. I don't think I ever really knew what happened with that. But my brother ends up moving back to the house. And he's not there long. He's there for, like, he lives there for maybe, like, a year and some change. And, but yeah, back at the house, and it's in this time that, like, obviously me and Chris aren't hanging out anymore. The band thing is just kind of like our band thing, Seasons After. Obviously not the band that you might know as Seasons After, but but they won, and it was just kind of funny that many years later we found out there's another band out there called Seasons After, and they were actually pretty damn good. So, which our band was just kind of like all Chris's music. I'm sure they collaborated a lot better than me and Chris did. But yeah, like I think Chris ended up doing some other band stuff. He ended up, the name escapes me right now, but he ended up being in like a pretty successful band that I saw a couple times. They had a couple CDs. I think Chris was talking about them having, like, recording a DVD at one point, but I don't know if that came to fruition. But yeah, I ended up, like, just struggling to kind of find. I wanted to get back in music. I wanted to be a lead singer, and I tried out for so many different bands, and some of them were just like little upstarts. It would be, I'd get out there and I'd think, we had this message board, because this is way before Facebook, way before MySpace. There were, message boards like the Morbid Angel board and stuff like that. Like it was, there was, TulsaMusicScene.com. I need to check that out and see if that's still a thing. But yeah, it was kind of like the Craigslist of musicians, and you would just get on there and say like, hey, I'm a guitarist. I know how to play this. I know what music theory is. These are the bands that are my inspirations. I'd love to join a band. And, and I was all over that thing. And we had a CD. So, and I've always been a little bit snazzy with the computer. Like whenever you watch videos of us and stuff, like, yeah, I'm usually the one that, quickly edited those. of like the corticals and stuff like that. But yeah, I kind of did some snippets of like all the stuff I was capable of: screaming, singing high, singing low, doing highs, doing lows, holding out notes, holding out screaming notes, hitting these real low like guttural screams, and hitting the big like yeah, like the big highs, and then just kind of made this resume like of a metal singer, and was just like, yeah, here's what I can do, and did like kind of showed off some of the like my vocal stylings of like singing one note and then like going over with backup vocals and doing an octave lower or an octave higher and just making it sound nice. And just saying like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'd love to be a singer for your group. And, sometimes I would get out there and it would just be like a guitarist and a bassist and they don't have a drummer just yet. Then I get out there sometimes and I'd end up just talking to some guy that is just like, he's just trying to start a band and find out it's like just some kid that like just learned how to play like some System of a Down song, and he just wanted to play that System of a Down song. And, man, I remember one of the bands I tried out for was this group that was, I again don't even remember the name, but they, I don't even know if I could figure out what the name of this band was, but they were actually like pretty dang successful. They were up there with like, you probably never heard of them, but like Agony Scene and Failsafe, which were like the two big dogs, which Failsafe was at one point like that was the band in Tulsa, that like those were the guys you wanted to impress. And, they were kind of like, they had this band that I tried out for, they had done some shows with Failsafe and they were kind of like on that tier with them. So like I thought it was an awesome opportunity, and I went out and it was like at this factory that like one of their dads owned. So it was really cool, like walking into this like kind of plant of a factory when like the place is closed, and then there's like this itty bitty setup where they like got the drums and they got the whole band there, except for a lead singer. And I went out there and practiced with them. I brought my acoustic and like played some of the songs. I got up there and like we practiced some songs together, and it went really well. And they were like, "All right, come out the following Monday." And they gave me like a CD with their old singer, and like gave me 2 songs that said like, "Hey, learn these songs, get good at them." And I worked on them, and then went out there and was just trying to impress them. So I came out a little early. And their old singer ended up coming out as well. And, for a little bit there, it was just me and the old singer waiting for everyone else to get there. And but the problem is that this old singer didn't know he was the old singer. He thought he was the current singer, and he did not know that the other band was like trying out new singers and like thinking about getting rid of him. So that was a fun night because like I'm just there with my acoustic guitar, man, and I'm just like playing out my songs, warming up the vocal cords. Kind of like I end up like sitting on the hood of my car, putting the song sheet. It was the song called Scream, and it was like making me scream, and it was like this really cool song. And I had worked on it so hard and like tried to figure it out and tried to like match the vocals and everything. And so I'm sitting here singing this song, and this dude pulls up and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing, just waiting for the guys to get here. I'm Cody. I'm trying out to be the lead singer." And he was like, "Oh yeah?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, well, I am the lead. I think his name was like Brad or Chad or something. It was an ad." And he was like, "Yeah, I am the lead singer. I didn't know they needed a new lead singer." And I was like, okay, they just asked me to come out. I'm really just like a fan. Like I tried to double back on it real quick because, dude, I was a lead singer for a band. If I found out someone was trying to step on my feet, I'd be pissed, So, and then like this is the way you find out you're getting replaced. Like I immediately felt for the guy and was just like, oh crap. Well, no, I'm a singer. I'm really just kind of coming out to like hang out with the guys and. We're all just kind of hanging out. Like I saw their show and I just kind of wanted to like them to give me pointers on vocals, and he didn't buy it at all. And like he was like, "All right, let me hear what you got." And I was like, "All right, cool." And I just like play this little acoustic song that I had written, and I am no expert at an acoustic guitar. I think I'm pretty good at what I do, but we're talking like hold out this chord, hold out this other chord, hold out, just play 4 chords and then like sing to it. And, like not really that bad, but, like enough to where I want to record it and get it out there, but not enough to where I want to, really show it off. And he's like, okay, that's pretty good. And I'm just really feeling self-conscious because like this is the first time I've played some of these songs, and it's for the guy that just realized that I might be replacing him, and just found out like his friends are trying to replace him and that he's getting kicked out. And so I'm just singing songs like with this idea in my head, like, oh God, this guy's gonna punch me in the mouth here in a second, and every time the dude like scratches his chin and like he's got that kind of like look on his face. And every time his hand raises a little bit to like, nurse a scratch or to like fix his glasses or something, I'm just like kind of flinching. I'm like, and here comes the punch in the face. He's like, yeah, that was pretty good. Can I see your guitar? And I was like, yeah, oh God, well, he's going to break the guitar on my head. Here we go, honky tonk man. He's going to take me out honky tonk man style and just bash me over the head. And be like, he came at me, folks. What do you guys think? All right, show's over. But he ends up taking my guitar, sitting on the back of my head, and on the hood of my car, and he just starts playing, and he starts singing, and I just realized, dude, I am completely not matched. Again, this is like Mike Tyson taking on a kid. Like this guy. He's got this amazing voice that I'm just captivated by, and the dude knows his way around a guitar neck, and he's just playing these songs and just going, and I find myself like more just kind of admiring this dude than like actually being scared anymore. I was just like, this guy's amazing. Like, this guy's really, really good. What the hell am I doing here? And then the other guys pull up and they see him out there and they're like, hey Brad, and hey Cody, and like the main guy, like kind of my like the guy I'd been talking to the most that asked me to come out and everything, like me and him kind of go to the side, and he's like, hey, what did you tell him you were here to do? And I was like, I told him I was here to try out for the band as the lead singer. And he was like, dude, you weren't supposed to tell him that. And I was like, how the crap was I supposed to know that? And he was like, no, what? Oh, God. And like this whole situation rose up that I never found out more about, because I just kind of, he was like, all right, well, we'll call you back. You'll just have to come back next Tuesday. And I kind of walked to my car, and like as I'm walking to my car, like the Brad guy and the bassist that like these two guys had pulled up, it was like the guitarist and the drummer rather, and the guitarist was the one I was talking to, and the drummer is over here talking to this lead singer that just kind of everything just kind of hit him in the face. And yeah, it wasn't a happy conversation. It was kind of like, have you ever been at a friend's house and like they're there with their wife and they start fighting and you just kind of like excuse yourself like, hey, I got a little bit of a tummy ache, so I'm gonna go, or like you just kind of get up and you just kind of do like the quick little hand wave, like not to draw any attention but just to be like, hey, and they're just like, yeah, that's probably for the best. That was kind of what it was like. I just kind of like picked up I was just walked over. Brad was still holding my guitar and he was talking very violently, as I can say. And they are in full argument, and I was just like, hey dude, can I get my guitar? And he kind of like looks at me and just kind of like very nice to me, like just kind of, when I say nice, I mean he didn't smile like, oh, here's your guitar, I hope I didn't break any strings. He just kind of stared at me like, this dude. But he kind of had this look like, you have no idea what you just walked into. And luckily it had nothing to do with me. Like I was kind of like the guy that started it, but had no idea there were these problems. And he just hands me back my guitar, and like doesn't smile, just kind of like looks at me, extends his arm out with with my guitar in hand, and I just kind of take it from him. And I'm like, okay, thanks. I hope you guys, good luck, guys. I hope you guys find the lead singer you're looking for, and I hope it's him because he's a badass. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. He's amazing. I'm a novice. Like, I can scream, I can work a crowd. I can't sing the way this guy sings. I can kind of sing, but my vocal education is in its infancy when it comes to actually singing. And so bye. Never heard from those guys again. Never, ever, ever. But yeah, like it was just kind of like goofy moments like that just for a while until I came across these guys that were a little rock trifecta. It was the guitarist, bassist, and drummer, Lawrence, Chris, and Justin. And these guys formed this band based out of Tulsa, like way out in Tulsa, called Critical Nonsense. And they were a rock group, loved bands like Breaking Benjamin and Tool and stuff like that. Finch. I got them into like One Side Zero, and Flaw was a big one for them, and I kind of brought that to the game. But yeah, like really cool guys, really awesome guys. They were a really tight group. So that was kind of like the biggest issue, was that these guys all knew each other from kindergarten, you know. So it was like me trying to break into the group was extremely difficult, you know. But yeah, like they asked me to come out and like practice with them as the lead singer, because they didn't have one yet, obviously. And they ended up, so me and PJ went out there, and I was like, yeah, because I need a +1. I need someone there because like they're gonna want me to actually sing, and like I'm confident in the screaming and everything, but not too much in the singing. So, you know, if you could just be my +1, because PJ had heard me sing before and he thought I was good. So we get up there and we just start thinking, you know, we all kind of sit and talk and like kind of laugh for a little while, and then we're like, all right, well, let's get to it. And they're like, okay, what songs do you know? And I just start going through the list of, you know, covers they know, and because that's how you kind of have to start, is you kind of just compare notes as far as covers go. That's kind of like, do you know Toxicity by System of a Down? Do you know One by Metallica? Do you know this song? Do you know this song? That like we can kind of practice. And yeah, they were like, okay, do you know any Breaking Benjamin? And I was like, yeah, I know a lot of Breaking Benjamin. This is way before Breaking Benjamin was Breaking Benjamin. The Saturate was the only CD they had out, and me and my brother were huge fans of this CD. And yeah, and I think I gotta add that to my Spotify. But yeah, like that was the only CD. It was, you know, they weren't the kind of like the mega group that they are now. We met those guys because they did like this $3 Thursday at Curly's, which is like this old venue way out in downtown Tulsa, and they were there for $3 shows, like not playing big stadiums or anything like that. And yeah, like I walked over and I was asking Ben for pointers, and you know, and me and Ben got in like a big conversation. He was like, yeah, dude, hey, we got to go put our stuff back in the trailer, but you know, come over to the merch table and we'll hang out. And you know, we walked over to the merch table and they came out and he was like, hey, what up, Cody? And I was like, hey, Ben. You know, so like me and my brother and his wife at the time, and Andrew, like Andrew was with me that night too. We all just kind of like sat in like a friend circle with Breaking Benjamin, and we just kind of like talked, laughed, and you know, just kind of talked about everything. And they were like, oh crap, it's 2 a.m. and we got to go. You know, it was a really cool moment. But you know, way back on that is, you know, I was like, what songs do you know? And they were like, we know how to play Home. And I was like, oh, awesome, let's play Home. And we played Home by Breaking Benjamin. If you haven't heard it, awesome song. It's about Wizard of Oz, but it is a badass song. And it's still one of my all-time favorite albums. But yeah, so oh, there's the timer. But you know how this goes. We're going to go a little bit longer. But yeah, so I end up singing Home with them, and we get to like the big bridge, which is, you know, it just stops and it goes like home, and it just like, you know, that was awful. But like when, you know, you're doing it, it's this big like home, and just this like yeah moment, and you know, so I do it. I swing for the fences. I was just like home. freedom, and just really get it, and just, like King Diamond, yeah, and are you ready to rock, and doing all that stuff, and like just getting into it. And I just kind of look over and I see them all kind of look at each other like, whoa, look at this guy. And so they asked me to come back, and I end up coming back, and before long, they end up being like, hey, could you be our lead singer? And I was like, hell yeah, I can be. So I start rocking with these guys, and it's the weird thing is through the time that I'm rocking with them, is my dad is giving me rides to practice and back. And my dad and mom are having like all these kind of issues. And, sometimes we would just drive out there and he would just bitch and complain about her, and he would just go off like it was like I was his buddy, and, this was a girl he was dating, but it was my mom and my dad. So, obviously I kind of wanted to help, but my dad, very, very insecure guy, extremely insecure. This is the same guy that like ran from confrontation. And if if he said, hey, the sky's pink, and you said, well, actually it's blue, just so you know, he'd be like, oh, I guess I'm too stupid to know what colors are. Like that's you remember, and then he'd later come back and be like, you remember that time you called me stupid? No, I never. When did I call you stupid? And you have no idea what he's talking about. Like he was that was just kind of what he did. He would just get really insecure, put words in everyone's mouth, and and do all that. So he kind of avoided, like, if he would talk about like how my mom was kind of addressing him and like being mean to him, and how she was being this big jerk and all this stuff, and I'd be like, well, have you ever thought to maybe listen to what she was saying? And he was like, oh yeah, like a 16-year-old boy is going to give me advice on being married. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not an idiot. Quit calling me an idiot. And okay, well, you just had an argument with me that didn't even exist. But the funny thing is like, it was kind of a long drive out to Justin's house, so like me and him would kind of be in the car together for a while, and he couldn't really run from me. So I just started kind of hitting him with the truth, like, hey, maybe you're to blame a little bit. Maybe you should take responsibility for some of these fights you're having. Maybe if you didn't think she was calling you stupid, maybe if you didn't act like, maybe just don't approach her like she called you an idiot because she didn't, and think, maybe that's my insecurity talking. Because that's kind of what I've always done, is be like, okay, there's no way that they mean what they just said they mean, and that it's really just kind of wishful thinking sometimes, but sometimes it's your insecurity talking, and maybe meet her halfway, and I've tried, and that's always what he said is I tried, and me and him would just go round and round, like, driving in the car back and forth, and we would just never get anywhere with it. And if I accused him, or if I just said he had done something, or like just said, hey, well, maybe, and I'd come in sometimes and he'd be like watching porn or something. And he'd be like, yeah, she's so mad, but she won't even look at me anyway like that. And I'd be like, okay, well, maybe you should just stop watching porn and kind of being, and at least be a little bit more discreet about it. And he'd be like, I can't believe my own son's going to call me a sexual deviant, and be like, dude, I watch porn. Like I think it's kind of weird that we're having this conversation, but no one ever said you were a sexual deviant. I don't know where that's coming from, and it was just weird stuff. And, and then like, I sometimes I'd get it in at practice and be like, all right, I think I kind of got through to him. And then we'd be back in the car and he'd just start griping about, you wouldn't believe what happened today. And just about all his things that, like, he was the victim in all his stories, and, when we tell our own stories, we're either the hero or the victim. We never tell, like, a completely clear picture, because it's just not good storytelling. But, so we get down to, like, with the band is, like, we've done a few shows, we've done a few house parties, which were cool, but we end up like going to record an album, and that's kind of where everything kind of fell apart. We end up with this. What is that band called? The Disciple. It's that Christian band Disciple. They're a signed band. You can look them up. They're kind of big in some circles, but we found this guy, and it just kind of turned out that he was the guy that he recorded Disciple's first album that was part of the press pack that got him signed. Because when you're in a band, when you're trying to get signed, you have to create a press pack, which is basically like a resume as a band. Like it's like your album, a list of all the tours you've done, some of your merchandise, and like basically like how you make money and all that stuff, and how you're a good investment and all this. But you have to record like a pretty quality album and send that in, and then they kind of use some of the songs off that, and you got to re-record with their studios and stuff like. Well, that's how it was when we were trying. But this band Disciple had sent in a press pack and gotten signed. So this press pack was recorded at this guy's studio that we were talking to. I had no idea when we first started going into it, but this dude had an ego about it because a CD he had recorded ended up being an album that got a band signed. So he wasn't like under contract with any kind of label, but his music had like drawn some success with one band. He had such an ego about this. Like he wanted to tell us how the music should be made. I argued with this guy more than I argued with my actual band when we did it. He was ridiculous. Like he wanted to, when he recorded guitar, he wanted to record Chris, the guitarist. He wanted to record one track and then 8 tracks of the exact same thing, so it sounded full. And then when he went back and did a lead, he would do the exact same thing, like you had to record it 8 times in a row. That is very, very difficult to do. That is very time consuming, and he charged by the hour. And so yeah, like he wanted to quadruple. I don't even know what the word is for 8. But he wanted to septuple the tracks. I don't even know if that's the right one. But he also did that with the bass, and he did that with drums. Like he wanted to double up on the drums, and it was really this like really just kind of like suck all the money out of everything. And then like every time he, if we had a question about it, he would point up to the picture of him with Disciple getting signed, or like, Disciple sent him back like a copy of their contract or something. Basically like something to say like, welcome to such and such label. I don't even know what label they got signed to, but it was like, welcome to, I don't know, like Solid State or whatever. And it was like a big name. It was like Nuclear Blast, or it wasn't one of those, but it was like a big name label. And it was like having like Welcome to Roadrunner on there. It was, it was like the sign of approval that he knows what he's talking about. So it was basically like him waving his Oscar in your face. He'd be like, so I don't know if you guys know this, but you can't do that on an album. I would know. When I recorded Disciples album, it was like this. And man, I remember one song in particular, like I was in the middle of recording vocals, and he just stops the song dead on, and he's like, look, you can't record songs like that. Like, that's not going to work. No one's going to like that. And I was like, okay, well, that's how the song goes. So this is how we've always done it. This is how we like it. So how about we just do our own thing? And he'd be like, okay, you can do your own thing, but if you do it the way you want to, it's going to be a failure. But if you listen to the guy that recorded Disciple, then, And I'm just thinking, like, dude, me and you arguing is going to go on and on. You're not even in the band. We're paying you to record. Hit the R button. Like, just do it. But all the guys, they were kind of on his side. I was kind of in my own ship. And, I was kind of felt like I was fighting for the band. And, like, by the end of it, like, we ended up paying so much money. And we recorded the vocals. And the vocals didn't turn out great at all because... he was just like, hey, you don't have to be here for me to mix the vocals. I'll just mix them myself. And I was like, no, I don't feel comfortable with that because, what if it doesn't come out right? And, and it was just, It's a very hard process, because we were dealing with like this guy's ego when we were paying him, and but all the while, all through this and all through kind of like leading up to recording this album, I had this pain in my side, in my left side. And, so I was just like, okay, I don't know what that's all about. I guess I just slept on it wrong. So I started sleeping on my right side. And then my right side just wasn't, that started hurting really bad. So I started sleeping on my back. And as I was sleeping on my back, my shoulders started hurting. And then my other shoulders started hurting. And then, eventually, I was in pain quite a lot of the time. Wasn't in my back, but it was in my shoulders. It was in my sides. It felt like someone was, using their knuckle to rub it into my ribs at all times on both sides, and then doing it at pressure points at the tops of my shoulders. And I thought that I was just, had a really bumpy bed, but little did I know that these old pains that were starting were from a very familiar source, and it was something that I faced in 2001. And that, because we're at an hour 15, and that is where I'm going to leave you, because next time we're going to find out that these little pains all have one source, and it was old familiar foe that was presenting itself in a way that I had some oncologist that diagnosed me the first time tell me there's absolutely no way, because leukemia does not present itself the way it's presented itself in you. There's no way it is leukemia. Absolutely not. I had a doctor actually tell my oncologist that helped me through the last 2 years of oncology, of leukemia, told me, okay, well, you may have some kind of illness with all these horrible pains you're having and not being able to sleep because of the pain you're in, but there's no way it's leukemia, because this does not happen. But like most scary monsters, some of them, they present themselves when everyone else is telling you that it's no way it's that. Maybe the boogeyman is real, and maybe cancer had come back. So we're going to find out next time what was actually going on. And now we're going to get into, like, to me, the first time was just practice round. This was the real fight. And this is stuff that I've never talked about. I've tried to write a book. This is about as far as I got, so I'm kind of running blind here now. But this is stuff that was very, very, very hard to get through, and it messed me up in the head for life up until now. And 13, 14 years later, this stuff I'm fixing to go into is the reason I'm doing this show specifically. This is the stuff. This is my cancer. This is the stuff that I've always been trying to define in my life, and this is the stuff that would mold me into the person I am today, and give me reason to fight and struggle and to overcome everything that I was, I guess, meant to be, and become the person that I want to be. And man, was it a fight. There is so much to cover next time, but right now I'm going to leave you with saying that I am still here, damn it. I am not going down, and any fight that comes my way, it can come, but it can't bring me down, because I just will not allow it. Why? Because no. So be there for someone. It's 2018, man. It's time for a new year. It's time for a new start. You can put it in the rear view, but it's always going to come back to you. So why don't you just turn around, face it, and by facing it, I mean tell someone about it. And if you find someone that might be going a hint, a smidgen, a little hair of what you're going through, you tell them, hey, here's the pile you might be looking at, and let me tell you, I'm at the top of that damn pile, standing strong, and it's on the ground. I'm not, and I refuse to be. So that's my story so far of my battles and my wars. I hope my story helped you. Now go, help someone with yours.